In this video I'm going to look at dormer roof construction, and as an example I'm going to use the question 7 from the higher level in 2015 as an example for going about drawing dormer roof construction. In the question there's loads of clues about what you must do here: 45-degree pitch, span, highly insulated. All these are in the question, so there'll be insulated slabs. There's an internal load-bearing wall. It gives us a size for the ceiling joist, tells us that there's tongue and groove flooring, it tells us the scale, and there's ventilation, and we'd only have to draw half of the roof space and 500 millimeters from the bottom of the joist we have to draw. And part B of the question looks about ventilation, and there's 3 courses of slates. So there's the specifics of the question. I'm going to start by drawing the wall, the 400 millimeter wall, and I'm going to draw the wall plate, and then I'm going to measure across for my span using the ceiling joist. The height from the line at the bottom to the top of the wall plate is 500, which is 50 in the scale of 1:10, and I'm using a center line here to get the middle of the roof. And if it's a 6 meter span, it's a 3 meter half the span, so that's the sizes I'm going by. It's a 45-degree pitch, which is in the question, and it's bird's mouth and a traditional cut roof, so it has to be 1/3. The 1/3 rule for the rafter, 150 millimeter rafter, so the perpendicular is 50 millimeters of a bird's mouth. Now this is drawn on an A2 page. It can't be drawn on an A3 page. It's quite a big scale, and it takes a bit of getting around in this here. It's difficult enough kind of to get used to drawing on that size of page. It's something that you should practice, because it comes up every so often that there's a fairly big drawing to do using the A2 page. So I've got up as far as the ridge board here, and I'm just going to draw a little bit of a section of the roof coming down the other side, because I'll have to put a collar tie in the attic space as well too, that you would have seen from the sketch. The height that I'm looking for as well too off the top of the ceiling joist is 2.4 meters, and to allow for highly insulated inside I'm allowing 62.5 millimeters in addition to that there. So that's how I've managed to get the height of my collar tie. And now there's quite a bit of drawing in this here as well, so you're going to be kind of tight on time to be able to do these things, but you don't actually have to get absolutely everything to be able to score full marks in this either, which I'll explain in a little while. What I've done here though, just to keep up to speed with the drawing, is I've drawn a vertical line to show where the vertical stud would be, and I've put it in at a height of 1.2 meters. And you can see down here I've drawn my soffit on the outside of the wall. It's a smaller soffit than usual, because I just felt that it was a bit tight on the space in the sheet to draw this here. And for every element that you're getting and drawing in here and noting, you must make sure that you note it. It's no good in just drawing it. You must make sure that you note each of these things in order to get the marks. I have a timber purlin shown here at the back of the stud, which will obviously be supported on from a load-bearing wall internally along its length. And I have my collar tie up here at the top, which I'm drawing in. This would be only something like a rafter type material. I've gone for slightly smaller because there's not much space at the very top of it there when you allow for your 2.4 meters. This trimming joist, or the noggin that I'm drawing in at the bottom here, the bridging piece, is actually placed there for fireproofing reasons, and the slab is actually meant to be a half-hour check fire rated underneath it, and the part that's not used in the roof space there. Draw my internal load-bearing wall. Now if you look at the marking scheme for this particular drawing, once you label 10 items on this here, it would have scored you full marks. Normally you'd be looking somewhere between maybe 10 and 15 different elements that you want to label in your diagram. If you hit that there, you should be fairly safe in managing to get the full marks, even if you haven't completed absolutely everything in your drawing. And just continuing the rafter down here. So if you think about it, you draw your wall, even if you put render on the outside of the wall, they're 2 elements. The internal load-bearing wall is another element, a purlin's an element, ceiling joist is an element. It doesn't take too long to build up 10 elements in this drawing here. I'm putting a double line there showing a Gutex board, which is for windproofing, and I didn't draw my fascia until I have that done, because I used another line which is kind of indicating the top of the laths, and I'm going around the inside of the roof space here now, and I'm allowing for the distance down of an insulated plasterboard to go around that inside there, and then I'm finishing off my tongue and groove board to come over and meet that there. And again, that was indicated in the question. Anything that's indicated in the question, you mirror this in your answer. You make sure that you include anything that's in the question in your answer. So back to the drawing here, triangulation of the roof is very important. You're losing triangulation when you open up the roof space for accommodation. So I'm putting in this perpendicular strut that's coming over to meet a runner. This can be used in an alternative construction where the joist is dropped down, but in this case as well too, it could be used. I'm putting in an eaves ventilator, and I'm putting in my battens. You can see my other videos that I go through to explain how to do the slating detail. So the first one is 300, the rest of them are 250, and then I have to put an additional batten in for the eaves course at the bottom, which I'm after doing here now. And that takes a bit of time now doing that there to get up to speed with this. Make sure that you have your laps, the 600mm slate that's centre nailed, making sure that it goes the distance to each of the different parts on your drawing. Once you have the overlaps on them there, that's your courses of slates shown. The tongue groove, I just freehand them in, showing a little bit of a tongue on the pieces of the boards. I'm giving myself a few guidelines here for insulation when I place it in. You're looking to have a minimum standard of 300mm of insulation. Not much room at the very top here where the collar tie is. And in all honesty, if that was a new build, a kind of rule, a rough rule to go by of having accommodation space in the attic would be that collar tie should, that at a height of 2.4 meters, should cover 2/3 of the floor area. If it doesn't do that there, it probably wouldn't be getting passed for accommodation space in the attic. But in this case, it's only to fulfill answering a question for an exam, so I wouldn't imagine that there's terrible thought put into that there. Insulation shown here, I'm kind of going through some of the detail fairly quick on that. Again, in the exam, I would leave it probably at the colour just, really, because you don't have a lot of time. A few pens are very good for highlighting the likes of what I'm putting in now is my the air tightness membrane. And remember, the question did ask for highly insulated, and I have that there kind of covered in that. And my cavity barrier down on the 400mm wall. Specifics of the question are all addressed in this here now. If I was to stop at this point and just start to stick in a few details of notes, you can see I'm answering the part B question there with the arrows going up, showing the vent at the very bottom, moving right up to the ridge, and have a space at the top at the ridge where a ridge, this ridge slate will be put in, allowing for ventilation up there. And there's something that I haven't done here, which you could have put in, would be cross battening for the slates, but it's fine as it is here. You're going to be tight on time in an exam to be able to get all these details down. And at the end of the day, remember I said each of the elements that you're getting, aim for somewhere more than 10 in a way. You'd want to have maybe 14 or 15 different elements that's on this here. You can see I'm indicating 500mm up. That was asked in the question. Once you address the question, you're going to be hitting each of the things that you're going to get marks for. So about maybe 10 to 15 elements. Make sure that you label them. The scale, there's not a huge number of marks going for the scale. Out of 60 marks, there's only 4. So it's not terribly high. The quality of drafting isn't high either. It's only 4 marks in that as well. And then the B part of the question there, I think you're looking at 8 and 8. So make sure that you address each of the parts of the question. Like I said, this is a big scale of a drawing. It's 1:10. It's taken in a lot of detail. Normally if you were drawing something like that there, that was maybe an attic space or a full roof or the best part of a roof, you'd be going at 1:20, but at 1:10 you're doing well to fit this on the A2 page, so it takes a little bit of planning for laying out of that there. As you can see, it makes the full height of that A2 page, which is pretty tough on anybody drawing here. And I've got way more details than what you would actually need in there. If you were to count them up, when I'm finished, I probably have in excess of 20. You're looking at half of that there would have got you full marks in the exam. And just a note, I suppose, on the the load bearing wall. I didn't go to the middle with the load bearing wall because normally you might have a corridor or something like that there. It could be staggered, and that's the reason why I put that in there. The purlin, the wooden purlin that I have in here, that could actually be put in as steel. And there's a few regulations on steel as well. If you're using steel to support the floor, you have to have it fireproofed. If it's not, you don't have to have it fireproofed. You might have to have a timber wall plate on top of the steel in order for it to be able to bird's mouth it in. Then other things like fire escape issues with attics, you would want to have maybe light getting into the attic. If it's a skylight that's used in the attic space, it has to be top hinged in order for it to be able to escape. And there's regulations over the height it can be off the floor. It can be only 600 millimeters off the floor. Other things then, like a gable window, would have to come into would have to have regulations for fire escape as well. 500 millimeters minimum opening. The height of the sill could only be 800, between 800 and 1100 off the ground. Things like that come into the attic, and I'll take a look at those details in another video. But this is kind of addressing the question that would have come up in 2015, and it's well worth practicing.